Amidst all of the wonderful emotion, I admit that I also have a strange emotion today because this will be my last Shabbat with the congregation for a little while. I will soon be taking a sabbatical throughout the months of January, February, and March, and it feels a little odd. I know the time will go quickly. I'm grateful to Temple leadership for granting me this time to reset and restore. I'm grateful to the amazing Holy Blossom Temple team. The congregation is in excellent and expert hands with them. My colleagues will provide you with the professional and caring support that you have come to expect. And I am very grateful to have this time to be with the family that I love. And I will return with new ideas and new energy soon enough. A true story from Jewish summer camp. A counselor was assigned to a bunk of first-time campers, 7- and 8-year-old boys. On the first day of camp, the young campers were warmly greeted as they got off the bus. They were led to a welcome to camp pep rally. They met their counselors, their bunkmates, and then were shown to their cabins to settle in. After the kids unpacked, the counselor, if you hear that rumble, it's just the snow coming off the roof. I don't want anyone to be nervous, just the snow melting. That's a good sign. So the counselor noticed that there was one camper sitting on the edge of his bed crying. The counselor tried to figure out what was wrong, but the boy was crying so hard he couldn't even speak. "Did you forget something at home?" "No," he shook his head. "Do you miss your family?" "No," he shook his head. After several more failed guesses, the boy finally caught his breath and eked out through his tears, "I don't know what comes next." For 15 months now, the Jewish people has been in the fearful state of, "I don't know what comes next." Through our own tears, we admit to one another, there is so much we do not understand. There is so much we do not recognize. There is so much we do not know. Parents are admitting this to their children. Grandparents are admitting this to their grandchildren. Teachers are admitting this to their students. But this should not frighten us. Because in Judaism, we are taught that it is actually a sign of wisdom to say when we don't know. The great medieval commentator Rashi, one of the greatest thinkers there ever was, sometimes while commenting on a particular verse of Torah would say, "Eini yodea ma milamdenu." I don't know what this teaches us. Now, this teaching of Rashi in and of itself is a teaching. Why did he feel compelled to share his confusion with us? He could have simply skipped over what he didn't know, and no one would have been the wiser. Rashi didn't comment on every single word, on every single phrase. No one would have known that he was stumped. Generations of students would never have known that the great sage came up short. But in his brilliance, in his confidence, in just 4 words, "Eini yodea ma milamdenu," Rashi, the masterful teacher, teaches us at least these 5 things. 1, humility. I know my limits, and I am confident enough to say to you when I don't know. 2, he teaches awe. In God's vast universe, much is mysterious. Rashi says, "I will strive every day of my life to understand it, but I, who stand in awe before the wonders of God's world, freely admit and without hesitation that sometimes only God knows." 3, Rashi teaches us trust, how to trust in him. It's as if he says to us, you, dear reader of my commentary, you can trust me. I will never lie to you. I will never pretend to know what I do not know. I will only tell you the truth as best I understand it. Fourth, Rashi teaches us patience because sometimes some things take time to be revealed. And fifth, Rashi teaches us faith in the future, faith in future generations. It's as if he says, maybe you, my dear student, will figure it out one day. I challenge you, I urge you, I implore you, please study this. Study this thing that I do not know and see what you might yet discover. By saying Eni Yodea, Rashi was fulfilling an earlier Talmudic teaching which he knew very well. There it is written, Lemod leshoncha lomar Eni Yodea. Teach your tongue, train your mouth to say, I do not know. Why should parents, politicians, doctors, teachers, rabbis, researchers, political and military strategists train themselves up in the ability to say, I don't know? Why is this so important? Because it also opens the door to searching, to greater curiosity, to breaking out of old patterns, of pretending that we know what we do not know, and emerging with a newfound creativity, a newfound capacity to dream and to discover. Albert Einstein, enshrined in our stained glass window there, he believed in the good that can arise from not knowing. He saw a relationship between not knowing and a religious outlook. He wrote, the most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. It is the source of all true art and all true science. He to whom the emotion is a stranger, who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe, is as good as dead, since his eyes are closed. The insight into the mystery of life, coupled though it be with fear, has also given rise to religion. To know what is impenetrable to us really exists, manifesting itself as the highest wisdom and the most radiant beauty, which our dull faculties can comprehend only in their most primitive forms. This knowledge, Einstein says, this feeling is at the center of true religiousness. Now, when Joseph is instructed by his father to go out in search of his brothers and their flocks, Joseph cannot find them. He did not know his way. Like that first-time camper, Joseph was lost in uncertainty. He didn't know what would come next. But just then, an unnamed stranger appeared as if from nowhere, as if heaven sent, and asked him simply, Ma tivakesh? What are you searching for? And Joseph answers, Et achai anochi mivakesh. I am searching for my brothers. Hagidana li efohem, can you please tell me where they are? And then the man points Joseph in the direction of Dotan. It can be said that all of Jewish history hinges on that moment when Joseph, the know-it-all, admits to not knowing, when he realizes, I do not know what comes next, and it frightens me. If it hadn't been for that admission to uncertainty, Joseph wouldn't have asked for help. He wouldn't have found his brothers, and they wouldn't have sold him off into slavery and he wouldn't have been brought down to Egypt, and he wouldn't have become second to Pharaoh and saved the Egyptians from famine, and his brothers wouldn't have come down to Egypt in search of food. They wouldn't have settled there. Their descendants would not have become slaves in Egypt for some 400 years. There would be no Pesach. There would be no Exodus. There would be no Torah. There would be no return to the land of Israel, and on and on. It all hinges on that moment of saying, I don't know. Can we say the Jewish story as we know it would not be what it is without Joseph's ability to say, I don't know what happens next? We can say, I don't know what happens next because God knows. As Joseph matures, he becomes less certain about how his future will unfold. And at the very same time, he grows more certain that his life is in God's hands. And he trains himself up to say it over and over again. When the butler and the baker in the prison cell asked Joseph to interpret his dreams, when Pharaoh in the palace asks him, tell me, interpret my dreams, Joseph clarifies, no, only God knows. God is the one who will interpret your dream. We see this sacred stance of not knowing also in the Hanukkah story. On the first night of Hanukkah, we recite 3 blessings: Lahadlik ner, she'asa nisim, and why do we say she'asa nisim? Why the second? I think we know why the first and the third, but why do we say the second blessing on the first night? This is one of my favorite teachings about Hanukkah. It's fitting for the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th nights of Hanukkah to say there is something miraculous going on here. But why on the first night? On the first night, the Maccabees knew full well that there was enough oil for one day. So why say the blessing for miracles? This was perfectly natural. On the first night, we know the candle will be lit, that there's enough to sustain. So there is a medieval collection of rabbinic answers to this question. In fact, 100 answers come why we say she'asa nisim on the first night of Hanukkah. The rabbis name 100 miracles on that first night of Hanukkah. And my favorite of the bunch is that they lit it at all. A cynic would have said, don't bother lighting the lamps now. It'll only go out tomorrow. I know this. I am certain of this. But no, in that moment of uncertainty, when the Jewish world did not know what would come next, a time of war and trauma, they were willing to say, who knows? God only knows. Let's give it a go. Let's give it a try. Let's imagine, let's dream for just a moment and make room for that dream, for that possibility. Let's open the door to a miracle that may yet come. And so they lit that light. And God brought a miracle. And the light burned on for 8 days until more of the pure, sanctifying oil could be acquired. Good people, we live in a time of not knowing. We live in a time of uncertainty. We do not know when the hostages will come home. May God watch over and protect them. We do not know what the new leadership of Syria will bring. We do not know how Israel will emerge from this brutal war. We do not know how Canadian Jewry will emerge from this frightful time of unleashed anti-Semitism. But like the young Joseph, we can answer in confidence, I am searching for my brothers. And like the more experienced and more mature Joseph, we can say, we do not know everything, but God does, and God will interpret our dreams too. And like the Maccabees who returned to the temple, we can light a new light, not knowing but hoping that it will last, that it will be enough to sustain. We don't know, but we can light a light and open the door for something of the miraculous to take hold. We live in a time of not knowing. But we ought not be afraid, like that young camper who mistakenly thought he was lost and alone, and it turned out to be neither. He learned quickly he was not lost and he was not alone, nor are we. We are not lost and we are not alone. We are found and we are in community. We are in sacred community, which knows how to hold one another, which knows how to sustain one another. We know how to celebrate a bar mitzvah named Joel, who has a heart and a neshama to match his pure, sweet voice. And we know how to grab hold of every Shabbat and every simcha that God sends our way. And we say, Ashreinu, Matov Chelkeinu, Umanaim Goralenu, Umayafa Yerushatenu. How lucky we are. How good is our portion. How pleasant is our destiny, even when we do not know what will come next. And how beautiful is this sacred inheritance. Amen.
Amen.